Where did the missing planets of the solar system go? They didn't explode, nor did they drift away. Some never even appeared, but still influenced the entire cosmic model, like Vulcan. Planets like Planet X and Planet 9 were invented one after another out of thin air. They were tracked and then forgotten. So in the following time, we'll reveal the whole process from hypothesis to denial. Then we'll ask a deeper question. If they never really existed, what exactly is disturbing this universe? For thousands of years, human understanding of the universe was extremely limited. The only planets we could see were just those 5: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These bodies were discovered because they were bright and easy to spot, visible even to the naked eye without modern telescopes. But by the late 18th century, everything began to change. An astronomer named William Herschel discovered a new icy blue celestial body. At first, everyone thought it was just an ordinary star, until they later realized it was a brand new planet. Today we call it Uranus, and it's over 19 times farther from the Sun than Earth. Imagine, it takes 84 years to complete one orbit around the Sun, meaning a person's whole lifespan is just one full orbit of Uranus. Herschel's discovery not only revealed Uranus, but also uncovered binary star systems and nebulae. At that time, such findings almost redefined humanity's understanding of the cosmic structure. However, as scientists studied Uranus's orbit in depth, they found something strange. Its orbit seemed disturbed by some invisible force, showing subtle shifts that didn't match predictions. This anomaly sparked new reasoning. Scientists thought maybe there was another unknown planet, quietly pulling on it with gravity. They began using mathematical models to predict the position of this mysterious body. Finally, in 1846, they succeeded in capturing that hidden influencer through a telescope, Neptune. Because of its great distance and low brightness, it couldn't be seen with the naked eye. This time, humanity confirmed a planet's existence through calculations rather than direct observation. But the exploration didn't stop there. Around the same period, scientists noticed an anomaly while observing Mercury. The orbit of the closest planet to the Sun showed shifts that defied model predictions. Unlike other planets, its path wasn't stable. Its trajectory seemed gently pulled by an unseen hand. To explain this, French astronomer Leverrier made a bold hypothesis. Maybe there was an undiscovered planet between the Sun and Mercury. No one had seen it. But it could be there, just explaining Mercury's motion. He named it Vulcan, symbolizing heat, hiding, and mystery. This hypothetical planet was thought to have a scorching surface and orbit very close to the Sun. It might be the culprit disturbing Mercury's orbit. This idea quickly drew wide attention from the global astronomy community. Although some questioned that if it were as big as Mercury, it would have been found by now. Others proposed another possibility: Vulcan might be smaller and orbit even closer to the Sun. Because of this, it remained hidden behind the Sun's blazing light for a long time, making direct observation very difficult. Calculations suggested it was only about 13 million miles from the Sun, while Mercury's closest approach is 28.5 million miles, meaning Vulcan is almost half as close again. Even more fascinating, some predicted its orbital period to be 19 days and 18 hours, with an inclination of 12 degrees, more tilted than other planets. Since it's so close to the Sun, even at its farthest point, it's still drowned in solar glare, so scientists speculated it might only appear during a total solar eclipse, when the Moon fully blocks the Sun, revealing a brief dark gap. Such eclipses happen 2 to 4 times a year. Whenever a solar eclipse occurs, astronomers point their telescopes at the Sun's edge, hoping to catch a fleeting silhouette of Vulcan. They put in great effort, observing repeatedly, and some even claim to have spotted an unusual bright spot during an eclipse. But the problem is, no one could replicate the observation, nor was there any reliable data left behind. Vulcan's existence remained theoretical. However, this long search soon took a new direction. At this point, a great figure who changed the face of science appeared: Albert Einstein. He proposed the revolutionary general theory of relativity, stating gravity isn't just a pull, but the result of space-time bending around massive bodies. Planets orbit the sun as if sliding on a curved space-time surface, especially Mercury, whose orbit isn't smooth like others but wobbles slightly, as if pulled by an invisible force. Einstein believed the sun's immense mass warped the surrounding space-time, altering Mercury's path. This theory was elegant and stunning, but verifying it took a long time. Because precise observations were needed, the scientific community worked hard, eventually finding Einstein's explanation the most reliable. Yet even with this simpler answer, some scientists still clung to the Vulcan hypothesis. After all, Mercury is always hidden in the sun's dazzling light, making observation tough. So the dream of Vulcan was hard to let go. But over time, more scientists chose to trust Einstein, using total solar eclipses to test relativity rather than search for Vulcan. Thus, these observations ended the Vulcan legend and also sealed Einstein's theory with scientific approval. But the story of Vulcan was far from the end of hypothetical planets. Entering the 21st century, scientists focused on another mystery, a massive body possibly lurking beyond Neptune, called Planet 9 or Planet X. This time, everyone was more cautious, though no one had seen it. Simulations showed it might be out there in that distant darkness, silently influencing the orbits of small bodies in the Kuiper Belt. If it exists, its mass could be 10 times that of Earth, with a long, elongated orbit, taking 10,000 to 20,000 years to circle the Sun, compared to Neptune's 165 years. It might be a gas giant, similar in size to Neptune but farther, colder, and more mysterious. Scientists have ruled out about 78% of possible orbits using Hawaii's observatory, but the remaining 22% still lets it hide perfectly. Some call it the space version of Wall-E. Others simply call it the shadow Earth planet. No matter the name, one thing is certain: its existence would completely change our understanding of the solar system's boundaries. If confirmed, it would be the 5th largest planet, and its domain would far exceed the influence of all other known planets. Of course, among these possible planets is an even more legendary name, Planet X. Remember the 2012 Doomsday legend? One of the hottest end-of-world scenarios was a planet called Nibiru, crashing into Earth. This idea first came from the 1970s, when a man named Cecil Seaton claimed in a book that Nibiru orbits the Sun every 600 years, like a cosmic ghost that lurks long-term and occasionally returns. But this theory is full of holes. If it really had such an exaggerated orbit, it would have disrupted the solar system's gravitational structure long ago. Not to mention it didn't show up in 2012, and some people mistook the 2011 comet Elenin for Nibiru. But it was obviously a comet, with a tail and a coma, not a planet. And Comet Elenin broke apart as it neared the Sun, its fragments still drifting at the edge of the solar system, taking at least another 10,000 years to fully leave that area. So Vulcan wasn't found. Nibiru didn't hit Earth, but the distant planet might still exist, waiting for us to discover it. These guesses sound like urban legends in astronomy, but they're not just made up on a whim. The researchers supporting these views aren't guessing. They rely on complex mathematical models and computer simulations, trying to theoretically outline that possible planet, which could explain the strange anomalies beyond Neptune. We're talking about the Kuiper Belt, a giant donut-shaped region around the Sun, filled with icy debris, remnants from the early solar system. This includes comets, ice chunks, small bodies, and dwarf planets like Pluto. Strangely, the 6 most distant objects in this region have orbits that unusually align in the same direction, and they tilt downward by 30 degrees. Differing from the orbital plane of the 8 major planets in the solar system, they're on completely different levels, even more outrageous. Though their orbital shapes and speeds vary, they consistently maintain this rare alignment. How unlikely is it for such a coincidence to happen randomly? Only 0.07%. In other words, it's almost impossible to be a coincidence. So, the theory of Planet 9 was proposed again. It might be a huge but invisible celestial body. Its gravity quietly pulls these distant, off-mainstream objects all in the same direction. However, the initial model didn't hold up for long. It faced skepticism over observational bias and calculation errors, and was once thought to be an overreach. Until in 2017, a new study reignited the planet hunt, this time by a team of Spanish astronomers. They proposed a new approach, focusing attention on a special kind of object. Extremely distant trans-Neptunian objects with highly elongated elliptical orbits averaging over 13 billion miles from the Sun. That means they drift far out on the edge of the solar system. And each orbit is a lonely, long journey. Researchers noticed a key detail: the focal points where these orbits intersect the solar system's plane seem to hide a clue, because whenever these objects pass near those focal points, they're more susceptible to gravitational disturbances from other bodies, potentially altering their orbits, or even knocking them off their original paths. But here's the problem: if their orbits are stable, then everything's normal. But if the orbits shift and there's no clear source of disturbance around, it means an unseen giant is stirring up that region. The study's conclusion is clear. Some unknown force is influencing these bodies' orbits, and it's very likely Planet 9. Simulations estimate this planet might be 300 to 400 times farther from the Sun than Earth. It's never been spotted directly, but has left a trail of orbital fingerprints. To this day, the orbital behavior of these distant trans-Neptunian objects remains our strongest evidence for finding Planet 9. If you're still skeptical of this theory, just look back at history. Neptune's discovery, which happened because Uranus's orbit was irregular and Newtonian mechanics couldn't perfectly explain it. Scientists hypothesized an unknown planet was secretly pulling on it. Then, back-calculated its position mathematically, and sure enough, they found Neptune. Fast forward to 2021. The topic of Planet 9 flared up again. After updating old models, researchers proposed a brand new hypothesis. Maybe this mysterious planet's orbit isn't as far as we thought. It could orbit the Sun in about 7,000 years. That's huge news, because it means its orbit is much shorter than the previously estimated 10,000 to 20,000 years, meaning it could be closer to us. If that's true, our telescopes might actually catch a glimpse of it in the foreseeable future. Even more exciting, the latest paper suggests that those oddly orbiting Kuiper Belt objects have a 99% chance of being influenced by this invisible giant. Not coincidence or observational error. You heard right. The chance this whole thing is just coincidence is now squeezed down to 1 in 250, much stronger than the 1 in 10,000 chance when the hypothesis was first proposed in 2016. This is why we still keep searching for it today. Each improved model and precise check shrinks its hiding space, like the Hawaiian research team we mentioned earlier, who used panoramic telescopes and rapid response systems to rule out 78% of its possible locations. It sounds like looking for a needle in a cosmic haystack, but we're starting to have a map. Still, Planet 9 remains a ghost. flickering on the dark edge of the solar system, leaving a trail of mysteries, but never showing itself. But astronomers and science enthusiasts haven't given up. They believe it's out there, and maybe soon, we'll witness the night it's confirmed for sure. If Planet 9 really exists, it will likely be under our watchful eye with nowhere left to hide. But even with mounting evidence, Planet 9's existence hasn't reached consensus in the scientific community. Why? Because it's not the only possible explanation for these anomalies. Some scientists suggest maybe there isn't a giant ghost planet, but rather a whole swarm of small Kuiper Belt objects, like dwarf planets, comets, or distant moons, whose combined gravity shapes these unusual orbits. There's also a bolder theory that it's not a planet at all, but something more extreme, a small yet incredibly dense black hole, possibly lurking quietly at the solar system's edge, disturbing nearby objects with its immense gravity. After all, black holes are among the deadliest, strongest gravitational sources in the universe and could mimic Planet 9's effects perfectly. But even more radical views have emerged. Some physicists think the problem might be with us, that maybe our understanding of gravity itself is flawed. They propose a theory called modified Newtonian dynamics, suggesting that in the farthest interstellar regions, gravity doesn't behave like we expect, and those icy distant objects behave strangely not because of a planet's influence, but because they're feeling subtle pulls from the galaxy's overall gravity. This idea sounds very avant-garde, but even supporters admit evidence is far from enough, and more observations and data are needed. So, the truth about Planet 9 remains elusive, but scientists' imagination never stops. Meanwhile, as Planet 9 remains unconfirmed, other researchers have proposed a new candidate, the Terran planet. It might be Mars-sized, or close to Earth's mass, with an orbit right at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. But here's the catch: if it's really that small, its gravity might not be strong enough to clear its own orbital debris, which was a main reason Pluto was downgraded. So don't get too excited, the so-called Terran planet might just end up being another dwarf planet. Did you notice something at the end of the video? Everyone asks where Planet 9 is, but hardly anyone asks what it actually is. We assume it's a celestial body, with mass, orbit, and gravity. But what if it's not? What if it's some kind of boundary, a rift in the fabric of the universe, a variation in physical constants, an illusion that tricks us into thinking it's a planet? Then what we're tracking might not be a body at all, but the edge of reality itself,